8 seconds. Open your mind to the way, the conscious way, the way of conscious mindfulness. With me, Sifu Boggie. Sifu means guide, means somebody who points you along the way, who guides you on your path. Boggie means the balancer between the chaos and the carnage. And for the last 39 years, I have been studying the Taoist art. The Tao means the way, the path, the balance. And I've been studying the techniques and skills like Tai Chi, Qigong, Tikta, Tuina, Chinese massage, reflexology, 5-element theory, 5-element cooking, acupressure, and many, many other techniques. With the goal of these techniques are all there to help you balance your own personal way, path, or goal. And through the years, I've had many students and clients with ME, MS, fibromyalgia, chronic pain, stress and anxiety, but they've even helped life coaches and life coaches, light workers, healers, supercharge themselves and ensure they never burn out. So that's who I am and what I do. What's the show all about? Well, this show is the Way of Kristie Sparksman, which is a regular live show talking about spirituality and science, balancing and blending it with health and well-being and mind, body, and spirit with a Taoist twist. What does the Tao mean again? The Tao means the way, the path, the balance. Now, this isn't a normal talk show. Anything with me in it most definitely is not normal. Each week, as the guest laughs in the background, each week we either have a subject or guest. Tonight we have a very beautiful, very lovely, awesome guest. And our goal, our aim, is to have an open discussion to help us all find new techniques, new ways, new skills to balance our very own personal way, path, or Tao. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce the wonderful, the gorgeous, the absolutely lovely and amazing Kristie Sparksman. Hello, good evening, how are you doing?
Hi, how's it going?
It's going hot. That's how it's going quite hot. I feel like I'm back in the bakery again. I'm cooking on gas or solar power. I'm cooking on something. I'm definitely cooking, whatever it is. So welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. This is your first show. And what normally happens, if you enjoy it, you'll probably come back again. I mean, it's like a golden ticket, it's a bit like a boomerang. Once you come on the way of conscious mindfulness, you can't help it. You keep it. You open up a door and you find yourself on the show again. So anyway, this is your show. This is the Way of Kristie Sparksman. So, Kristie, what is your way? What is your personal Tao?
This is such interesting timing for all of this, actually, because yesterday I sort of set fire to a lot of things in my life that were existing. Actually, I've been setting fire to things for the last many years as awakening kind of dictates that you do. And yesterday I sort of, I guess, came out of the closet of spirituality of, that paradigm. And I realized that I want to talk about things that aren't as, I guess, light, happy, whatever you want to label those sort of lighter emotions. I really enjoy being in the dark. Of course, I love to be in the light as well. It's a very beautiful balance, the laughter and the darkness. And I really feel like they're two sides of the same coin. But yeah, yesterday I felt this sort of calling to just be who I came here to be in a sort of a public, explosive, firepower sort of manner. And this piece just sort of came out of me. And, I was working with a client yesterday, 2 days ago now, and we were just having a chat. It was, we were just having a chat, and I noticed that there was so much spiritual sort of, it almost felt like gum, like being pulled out of hair. Like there was just a lot of like spiritual stuff that was in there that wasn't grounded in something that might have been able to help this person. And so we kind of started dabbling in a bit more grounded of an approach with some spirituality. And I went and did a quantum healing with her later on after we chatted. And so it was a little bit of both, but you know, with complex trauma, which is something I'm going to probably talk about a lot in this show because it's very much a huge part of my life. I'm not attached to it in that, you know, I need it, but it is very helpful to have that sort of foundation to step up from. And anyways, we were just chatting, and she has complex trauma as well, PTSD from her own past. And, you know, we got to talking about just childhood, and, you know, she hadn't cried in so long, and she let me know that. And, you know, it really touched me because I so remember being there. And I went through a phase of, when I first woke up, of trying to just manifest everything with affirmations and love and light and all that stuff. You know, I was throwing down beautiful new carpet on rotting floorboards is what I was really doing. And it wasn't until I actually started digging in those trenches that I actually became, you know, able to hold myself in that light in a more sustained capacity. So once we started talking, her and I, about, you know, giving herself permission to cry and feel victimized by what had happened to her in like a very human way, then the dam burst, right? And she was able to cry. And to me, that just like struck such a chord, and it really just inspired, you know, my own, like it was such a reflection to me as well, because nobody had ever given me permission to cry before. You know, it was growing up, I'm sure many people can relate. You know, we were told, don't cry, big girls don't cry, boys don't cry, all sorts of just stuff, right? And, you know, till we're around 7, we're just this open vessel of taking in a sponge brain of just absorbing everything. So, you know, holding on to that program in our brains, it really does carry to adulthood. I don't remember crying in my adult life, except maybe if I got hurt, like physical pain. I never even knew I could cry. And so my way, I suppose, is that sort of middle place, that place between the human and the spirit. Science and spirituality, psychology, and, you know, energy work, all of those things. Like I adore both, I guess, sides, for lack of a better term. And I just love where they marry in the middle. And I love like sciencey things. I you know, spent my last 5 years, no, not even longer, 6 years. I was just reading so many self-help books. This is before I woke up, and I was just so excited to like learn. And I've always been a student of everything. And, you know, taking all of that stuff I had learned and then mixing it with all of this spiritual stuff, once I actually woke up and started shedding all of the stuff. Oh, that spicy middle place, I love it so much. It's just like that beautiful ground. It's so fertile, you know, there's so much that could happen there. And I don't know, when I was in therapy, talk therapy, I made such little progress in 2 months, and it cost me like $2,000. It was just craziness. And until I started like working with mentors who actually did like energy work, and I started learning their tools, and they would like teach me their tools as well. Until I put those things together, it just wasn't working as effectively, you know? It's that yin yang thing, you know, it's exactly what your show is talking about.
There's a big, I mean, I think I was very lucky that I think like you, the show being the way it is, I love so many different things. I love knowledge. I love learning. The word philosophy, most people don't know, the word philosophy comes from the Latin word philo, which means love of learning, love of knowledge.
Mm.
And the Eastern concept of that is that you never stop learning. You shouldn't, like the Japanese will say in the expression of always be an empty cup. That you're always, and what they're talking about is that what happens in the West, we get to this point where we say, oh yeah, I've done all the learning I need to. I know it all. I'm a master. I'm a this. I'm a that. And this is why I make a big thing that a Sifu, to me, is not master. Sifu is a guide and use. A Sifu is the same as a student, as in they're always learning. And everyone is your Sifu. Even my students are my Sifu. I learn as much from them as they learn from me. And so there's that side of it. And there's also this side of that in and especially in the style of Taoism I do, the water way and the three ones way. And the three ones is mind, body, and spirit. It is physical vitality, chi, emotional vitality, jing, and spiritual vitality, shen. It is also the divine feminine, the divine masculine, but also very important, the divine or the sacred child. And these are not people, these are qualities, these are energies. Like you hear people, somebody say, oh yes, I'm a woman, I'm very much living in the divine feminine. And it's like, you should be in the masculine as well. And the sacred childhood, they're qualities that you should be going for. And there's this thing of that people seem to focus. We're in the West, we box things. We stick people and things in boxes, and we think you can be one, but you can't be the other. You have to be this, but you can't be that. And as you said, like as kids, we were programmed, right? Whether people realised what they were doing or not, children up to the age of 7 are literally sponges, are literally learning everything. But they learn everything unconsciously as well. A lot of unconscious programming happens all the way up to the age of 7 to 9, especially. And there's an old Chinese saying that says, show me a child of 9 and I will show you an adult. Meaning, by 9, but apart from unless there's major traumas after that age, by 9 years old, you have the main characteristics of that person. The main characteristics, their main, what their goals, their strengths, their weaknesses, the main parts will be set by 9 years old. And it's the thing to do, we're absolutely spongy all the way up to 7 especially. And there's all the, and like you say, like, oh, big girls don't cry, and big boys don't cry, and boys should be manly, and women should be this and that. And all these programs are all subtly being put into us. And the issue with a lot of healing in the West, we see physical healing is one thing, we see emotional healing is something else. And we're lucky if you see spiritual healing or spirit stuff is either, oh, that's religion, or we don't talk about that at all. In the East, they're all important, but they're not woo-woo. They're all part of the same, they're all part of the same thing. And a barefoot doctor or a dreadful shaman, they'll deal with all three. They don't, they don't quite say, oh no, I'm a specialist. I don't do that side, I only do this side. All three are important because all three are intertwined. Your relationship with your father, your relationship with your mother, the relationship with your other siblings, and the relationship with yourself is all important. None over, all of them are important because any one of those that you neglect will cause an issue, will cause a problem. Not, oh, well, that one doesn't matter. All of those are important, and, your relationship with yourself and the relationship to everybody else is as important. But there's this, I'll throw this other one thing in, and then I'll pass it back over to you. But there's, it's interesting, and I've had this before. A lot of the time, I'm silly and I'm very fun, and I do, I very much love the humour and the light. But there are times There are times, if I'm angry, you'll know about it because it comes out. And it's funny how people go, I thought you were spiritual. Well, why are you getting angry? You're supposed to be spiritual. And it's like there's a few teachers in Taoism, and there's one called Chengzi, or it would look like in the West would actually pronounce it Chengsu. It's actually Chengzi. And Chengzi is one of the great Taoists, and he was known that he would say, your goal is to go with the flow, find the balance of the yin, the yang, which becomes Tai Chi, the supreme ultimate, and to find balance. But if you're upset, if you're frustrated, and you can't let it go, scream, shout, wail, have a temper tantrum, jump up and down, throw a toy in the air, do whatever. Things don't hurt anybody, but do whatever you need to do to get it out. And there's a whole saying, because if you don't let that out, frustration or stagnation in the body, that becomes tension in your body. Tension then becomes illness, and illness, if not dealt with, becomes death. So, and that's not, that's emotional, spiritual, and physical. It starts off, in balance, or the Taoists will say quite simply, if you've got a blockage, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual, you've got a blockage in your body, just like you've got a blockage in the pipe blocks and it overflows. If you've got a blockage in your body, you'll get ill. It's simple. It's not rocket science. Is that if you're ill, there's a blockage something. Something is blocked. Something needs clearing. And that, so they believe is that if you don't clear things, they start manifesting into physical illness, and then that physical illness gets worse and worse and worse until eventually it kills you unless you do something about it. And so all illness is disbalance or blockage within the body, and in essence, all illness relates back to not the actual illness itself, which is the effect. The cause is something emotional. The cause is something psychological. The cause is something else. And that's the difference. Within the Eastern philosophy, you don't get ill because you got a virus. You got a virus because your immune system was weak. Your immune system was weak because you didn't deal with your problems. You didn't deal with your issues. You weakened your body, then you get ill. So they see illness in a different way, or like if you get stressed and then you get, because you're stressed, you slammed your finger in the door, or you trip over and you bump your head because you got stressed. It's because that you falling over has got nothing to do with the door or having an accident. They would see that you weren't paying attention. That's why you had an accident. So an accident is that you're not paying attention, and you're not paying attention because your energy is disrupted. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. You are speaking my language, sir. Oh man, so many. Oh, where do I go from there? That was, yeah, you summarized it perfectly. The first thing I noticed when I started actually grieving out so many stuck emotions that I'd repressed for my first 30 years was that I was able to sleep deeply through the night, in a comfortable position where I didn't wake up with my neck like, and that I tried everything for so long. I tried blackout curtains. I tried sleeping pills, melatonin, earplugs, because I was such a light sleeper from so much hypervigilance as a kid. And when I actually started getting into my body and moving this stuff out, whether through breath work, trembling release therapy, air punching while I dance, going for runs, like all of that stuff. And I actually started to move it, grieving, of course, having a rage, beating up pillows. Oh my God. I have a few pillows that are just, I'm so sorry, pillows. They've taken a beating. Until I started actually moving that stuff out, all of those, I could have done anything on the surface And all it would do would be just like a slightly sustained, like like a vacation almost from what I was feeling. You know, like it's almost like going to a retreat for a weekend, you know, and it like that's a fun thing to do. Cool. You do a bunch of affirmations, like I said, but you come back and like it, you know, that high kind of wears off. I heard it called like spiritual novocaine, where you kind of go in for like a hit. It wears off until you actually like get down into like that stuckness, you know, tapping like meridian points and stuff. It helps me so much. Like if I'm out and about and I get angry or triggered or something like that, and if I'm in a group, I'll excuse myself and go quickly like tap on certain places. K27 is a good one. And I'll just like do a quick, like I'll let that out energetically. And because you're exactly right. If the more you like keep it in, all that stuff, it's just so obvious in the body. You know, once I learned that, I was like, oh, this makes total intuitive sense. You know, I don't even need like, I mean, I've read many books on it, but it's almost like you just know your body has so much wisdom to it, you know, it's telling you, it's screaming at you through various things, you know, like whenever I have a low back pain, I know that's anger for me. Like that's how anger shows up. It's like close to my liver, my kidneys. I understand that to be anger. So if my low back is hurting, I know I have some anger to get out. I guess like get out the pillows, beat them up.
Very quickly, liver. The word liver is where the word livid comes from.
Ooh.
Livid. So liver is actually where anger is, can be stored, and livid, and so within the 5 element system, your different organs all store different emotions, and I do quite a few different actual massage systems, and Shundal, the family system I do. There's a qigong side, there's a martial arts side, there's a spiritual side, and there's a healing side. And when I do the Shundal massage, I say to people, are you feeling like the world is, are you feeling like Atlas and having the world on your back, and you're very stressed, and are you like you've got all these ideas that you can't, you can't actually make them physically manifest. And people go, oh, you're a psychic, how did you know? And it's like, no, what told me? Because the tension in your shoulders is the world on your shoulders. Tension in your neck is the bridge between what the brain can believe and what the body can physically achieve. So when you've got tension in your neck, that's blocking, that's saying that there's a blockage between the two, which then also causes migraines and headaches, because the tension builds up in the neck. The blood goes up, but it can't come back down, so the brain swells, which causes headaches. Which again is you've got all these ideas and they're not actually, they're not actually moving forward. So your body, every muscle, every sinew, every tendon in your body, and the fascia, which is the like just underneath the skin, the tissue, that all gives you information. It all tells you stuff all the time, and the saying cause and effect. The problem in the West, we look at the effect and not, and your how you feel, your illness, your aches and pains are the effect. They're not the cause. And the biggest thing, like with doctors or people, when I was a kid, and I was learning this, and I hear people, I've got a headache, and something like, I'll take an aspirin. And I learned very quickly, and one of my joke metaphors on that. So taking an aspirin for a headache is like the fire alarm going off in your house, and somebody says, "Here's an axe, chop the cable to the fire alarm." So you chop the cable to the fire alarm, and go, "Oh, okay, everything's okay now. The fire alarm's not. The house will burn fucking down." Pardon my French. But the alarm's not going off anymore. And that's what's happening, is that when you take, an aspirin, when you take a painkiller, listen to it's killing the pain, it's not solving the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So painkillers kill pain, but they're not body healers or solving healers. They're painkillers. They kill the pain, but they don't kill the problem that causes the pain. Is a fire alarm. It's your body screaming at you, saying that something's freaking wrong. Wake up. And the issue is that we see the effect, and medicine tends to work on the effect and not the cause. And this is where this is just the beginning. This is where a lot of our issues are. Is we're looking at the wrong thing. We're dealing with it, and there's really the spine. The spine is an amazing thing, but the spine, there is what's called an intercostal muscles in the spine, and they're like a braces on the spine, like having a brace on your back, and that supports the body. But what most people don't realise, that most of your pain, most of the sensations you feel, is what they call referred pain. It's referred. So if you, let's please hope that it never happens, but if you was ever to get your arm amputated, and you then, and you wake up one day and you get an itchy hand, you go, but I've got no hand, I've got no arm anymore. Why have I got an itchy hand? It's not there. The nerve that runs to that still exists. The nerve runs through your body, and that nerve can be triggered, and the brain will say, "Oh, it's your hand itching." So there's a lot of time that we getting a pain in a certain place, and it's not actually there at all. And in your back, there's actually only three main pain centers. The lower part, right near the top of the neck, and dead in the center. But you can actually push on somebody's back at a certain point. That each vertebrae in your back is like a nerve center for nerves going to different organs, different parts of the body. And sometimes people say, I say, on the pain in my lower part of the back, and then he goes, and I push them, like halfway down, and say, "Oh, there wasn't pain there before." I said, "No, actually, it's been there all the time. But because it's not near one of those main centers, you're not feeling it. You're not actually feeling that pain." But when people say, "Oh, I had pain in my left hand, but now I'm feeling it in my foot," it's because your body can only feel one major pain at a time. So if your left hand hurts, and then I stamp on your foot, your left hand won't hurt anymore because I've just broken the toes of your feet, and that will hurt more. And that's how the body works. There's this thing of referred pain, but it means a couple of things. It means that the body sort of lies at times. The body, you're feeling pain, but it's not actually in the right place. And what's happened in the past, for example, people said their knees hurt, have gone to their doctor, who's then taken them to hospital, and they said, "Oh yeah, you need knee surgery, you need knee operation." They go and have a knee operation. 6 to 9 weeks later, after the operation, the knee's still hurting, and they go, "Oh, we must have missed it. We'll do it again," and they do it again. And it wasn't the knee at all, because the nerves in your back that run through your back were triggering the knee, but it's not actually the knee. You actually correct. I've actually had where somebody was about to have a knee operation because of their knee, and one of the things I do is TikTok. Sounds a bit rude, but TikTok is Chinese osteopath, and I clicked their back, and suddenly their knee pain went. Amazing. Because the nerve running through the back actually, or a hip pain. The same can happen with the hip or the toe, but also you can, there are times where somebody can have their eyesight is okay in the morning, but then gets blurred during the day, or their hearing goes, or their throat goes, and it's actually in their neck. That the vertebrae, there's a nerve trapped in the neck that's actually affecting their throat or their ears or their eyes. And again, because somebody says, "Oh, I got glasses because my eyesight kept failing me," they get their neck clicked and suddenly their eyesight's better. And it's like, but I bought a new pair of glasses. It's like, well, that's because that wasn't. People are looking, and the profession has been set up to look at the effect and not the cause. And the issue is that it's this thing of, before you look, when you see one thing, step back, can you get, you know, yes, you see a fire alarm going off, step back, where's the fire? You know, that's the fire alarm, where's the fire? Look for the fire. That's the stepping back and observing the body as a whole. You actually get to see more, and you figure out more, and that's the issue. We're focusing far too much on separate things because we've got to think that things are separate and not connected, when in actual fact, quantum physics will tell you everything's interconnected. And your whole body is a whole complete system. And you have to look, but not just on the physical level, on the emotional and spiritual as well. And that's the difference, where you've got to work on those levels, but also, as a Sifu, it's that a lot of people, say, Boggie, I've got a back problem. I'll sort my back out. I'll go and sort my back out. They'll be back in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Come and sort my back out again. I'd rather actually teach them how to do it themselves and solve the problem, so they never come back. Because I'm not actually after their and that's the issue, is that you have some people, even practitioners that have got used to. I hear it a lot with certain chiropractors or certain practitioners. Oh, I go there once a week, or I go there once a fortnight, or I go once a month, and it all builds up. They sort me out, and I'm fine until next month. It's like, well, that shouldn't happen. Checkups, yes, you need checkups, but you shouldn't be being like a boomerang where you go away for a certain period of time and then it all builds up. The same problems every single time build up, and then they go and sort out. It should, if anything, it should be different problems, because you should solve one lot of problems and then another lot will arise, another lot will come up, not the same issue. So it's this idea of you can actually fix yourself. Yes, when you still, everybody's a teacher, you still have other people to help you, but you shouldn't have to. The power is in you, and it's learning that you are your own healing tool. You are your own Sifu. Yes, it's good to get guidance from others, but you shouldn't be giving away your power to and relying on everybody to fix you, when you should be the one fixing yourself. But as any good Taoist should say, hey, what do I know?
Yes. Oh my God. I haven't I had my wisdom teeth out. Okay, this is a good one. I had 9 teeth taken out of my face, 9 in 2019 actually. I had 7 wisdom teeth and 2 extras just kind of floating down underneath my tongue. And that was the first time I had taken any sort of painkiller in about 4 years, because the pain was so intense. I couldn't do anything. I had dry socket. I've never experienced physical pain like that. Nerve pain in your, oh my God, it just is like directly to your brain. It's like, and so I hadn't taken Tylenol because I sat next to this very curious fellow in maybe 2013, 14 maybe. And he told me, we were sitting next to each other on a plane, and he was like, he was just talking to me. Like, it was one of those, like, just really interesting fellow. And he said to me, you don't need Advil and Tylenol and all that shit. He was like, if your brain is hurting and you have a headache, it's only 4 things. It's either you need more sleep, you need more salt, you need more water, or you have a tumor. And I was laughing. It made me laugh, and it really stuck with me, like that interaction on the plane. I was like, that kind of makes sense to me, and I stopped using Advil. So next time I had a headache, I would drink more water, or I would like try to get more sleep. And it truly works. And so that was sort of my, I guess, first foray into understanding that, like, all of the things that were showing up in my physical reality as disorders were actually just symptoms, exactly like what you were saying. You covered all the body stuff, so I kind of want to go into like the psychology stuff. I read in Pete Walker is an amazing complex trauma therapist and just book writer in general. And in the intro to his book, he says, if people understood complex PTSD, then the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Standards Manual in the US that has it's like this big with all the disorders we can have, like he said if that was understood, if complex trauma was understood, the size of that thing would be a pamphlet, because it's true. Instead of we're just like, oh, you have all these symptoms, you have this disorder, instead of looking at, okay, so why are you that way? Like things like generalized anxiety disorder. Okay, so I would say if I was to like diagnose that, I would say you probably had a turbulent childhood and now interacting with people in your present day is difficult for you. Social anxiety, things like that. That might be a disempowered kid who got yelled at a lot. There's so much, but we bury it so far down that we don't even realize how bad it was. I think that like breaking that denial of realizing like, hey, my childhood wasn't actually that nurturing is such a huge, at least for me, that was like the biggest thing I could have done. I always said to people, I was like, oh yeah, my dad wasn't around. So, he's just sort of like a fun uncle to me. I used to say that all the time. And I used to tell people, yeah, my parents' divorce didn't affect me. And really, like, I didn't start grieving that until last year. And I didn't realize how much it had affected me. It devastated me. Imagine, 4-year-old kid. We look at things with such an adult filter. We're like, oh, that's not so bad. But put yourself in like a child's position. You're 4 years old and suddenly your dad is leaving. Kids are egocentric by nature. They're going to think something's wrong with me. They don't have that cortex development yet until later that says, oh, no, dad's leaving because mom and him aren't a great fit. They're not able to rationalize that in those ways. So they internalize it. So, but that's so buried deep inside of us. And, I've come to know that the subconscious is the body. So all of our stuff lives there, so that pain of that devastation of dad leaving when I was 4 at Christmas, God, no wonder I got wasted, blackout drunk every Christmas. No wonder. I had no idea that memory came up to me when I was finally grieving enough that it kind of came up. It was like plunged down and it was almost like, a buoy, like it just boop, popped up. And I was like, holy shit, I'm making that connection now. Christmas to me is a devastating time because my dad left. Symptoms. I had 15 different addictions at one time. I say addictions because I don't like to give things too many labels. Like I find us to be quite clingy to like identities and labels. Like I used to brag that I was on antidepressants back in the day. I was so clung. I was like, oh, I'm depressed. And I was like showing off my vial. Like it was a way for me to get, that positive reinforcement from others by clinging to my diagnosis, my illness, my disorder, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, it wasn't until, that I realized like all those 15 different addictions were just ways that I was diverting the pain, not facing the pain. Like I was blacking out 6 times a week. That's not normal. And I did it for years, and so many drugs, cigarettes, sex, like just everything you can imagine. I used it to cope. And like, I was so out of control. And really what I was in pain. I was in so much pain and I didn't know how to deal with that because I didn't learn how. And most of us, I would say, on this planet didn't learn how. And yeah, I'm going to stop it right there and let you go. I have so much I want to say. Oh, it's just such an exciting conversation for me.
Well, it's your show. That's the whole point. but yeah, this is the thing. I mean, the whole point. Daoistically, one of the things it's interesting for me with society that there's a saying I've used now 30 years ago. This was a very triggering saying. It's less of a triggering saying now, which tells me how much society's grown. And the saying is this: there is no good or bad, there just is. And like I say, 30 years ago, people say, "But what about rapists? What about Hitler? What about this?" And they would bring up all this stuff, and it's like everything leads to something else. That's the whole point. Everything, and the whole fact is that everything that happens is information, and if you deal with that information, you'll grow. If you don't deal with that information, it will get blocked. And when it gets blocked, it can be blocked physically, spiritually, which now spiritually, we automatically think, oh, woo-woo, God. spiritually can just be your thoughts, your intellect, but it can also be your interconnections, your or even that emptiness. You know, when a lot of addictions is because we're definitely trying to fill that void that we have, and that void is that not that connection you don't have with yourself, and that connection, understanding, you know, actually the connection with everything in the universe is about flowing and learning to flow in. So when we get addictions are you definitely trying to fill that void that can't be filled, because again you're trying to fill it with the effect and not the cause. The cause of something else. But yeah, you know, like I said, listening, I mean, not quite, you know, my mum dad split up when I was 6, and they divorced when I was 9, and when they were, it's quite touchy, but when I was 6, but my mum did a lot of stuff, and my dad finally split, and he saw red mist, which is, you know, a term where people lose control, and he was going to hit my mum, first time ever. But you know, and you know, I knew that, you know, just my dad actually doted, but kept pushing, and one day he lost it. I was going to hit, you know, almost a hit, and I was there saying, "Dad, don't hit mummy," and that was enough to shock him, and he left. But also that, you know, like me bringing that up, my dad leaves. You know, I caused my dad to leave. You know, you know, is that, and that's how the brain sees it as first. Is that not that you did the right thing, but you know, is that you actually made something happen, and you know, and yeah, you know, there's lots of things that happen, and you know, they happen for a reason, and they happen because they happen. And the whole idea is by learning from them and growing from them is a powerful thing. And there's another technique I'll quickly say. There's different Taoist, the way, the path of balance means there's lots of different styles, there's lots of different versions of Taoist. And there's one style of Taoist called the Dragon Dog Shaman. And the Dragon Dog Shaman are a little bit like spiritual quantum physicists. And they believe in certain things, like everything's interconnected. They believe in multiverse theory, and there's a technique where they can actually teach you to go back either in your own life or into people's lives and sort of be like a shadow or a ghost in that person's life, and just be there for them and say, you know, you're going to make, you know, you send them love and you send them energy. But it's sort of like Reiki-ish, but you send them energy saying, you know, you're going to get through this, you're going to get through this. And the interesting thing with that is that I learned that when I was about 1920, and I suddenly realized from around about 5, 6 years old, and I kept this to myself because my mum was a little bit of a hypochondriac. You know, if you sneeze, she will only take you to the doctor with bubonic plague. And so I learned very, very quickly, don't tell your parents that you're seeing angels or seeing other things. Don't tell your parents that you remember being a samurai, but you haven't even, you had to look up what a samurai was. You go, oh yeah, I was one of them. Don't tell your parents that, because you'll get locked away. So from 6 years old, there was this energy that I felt, this presence that I felt, that was weird in the essence of it. Felt familiar, but it felt really strong and really powerful. And it was just like this, you know, you'll get through this, you'll be fine. And even though, you know, when I got older, around about 10, 11, 12, I tried to commit suicide quite a few times. And that presence was always there. It wasn't until I was 20 that I suddenly realized that presence I felt was me going back to my past, being there, saying, you're going to make it, because I'm here. You will make it. You will get through. And I suddenly realized that I was my own angel. I was my own guide, you know, from the future. That I was going back to the past. And, you know, in Dragon Dog Shaman, they teach that you can actually, you know, you're here right now. You can go back. Or one way of dealing with trauma and childhood issues is actually, a version of shadow work. Is actually go imagining yourself however you want to do it, in an aeroplane, in a TARDIS, or just click your fingers or slap your heels 3 times, and you're back in that period of time whenever you needed to be there, and be there just supporting yourself, saying it's okay, you're going to get through this, you will be okay, and just feel that energy and do that for yourself. Be your own guide, be your own angel, be your own support. And that was for me, that was a really powerful tool, because it was like, and because I'm here today, so I know I'm going to get through it. I know I'm going to, make, and suddenly, because the past, the especially the regular shaman, they believe everything is happening all at once, that the past is actually still happening. So you can go back to the past and you can help heal that trauma by being there, and by being an energetic support for yourself, and actually going, well, you're going to be fine. I'm from 20 years, 30 years in the future. You'll be fine. You will make it. You will be fine. And you can actually heal things just because of the fact that you are your own evidence. You are your own proof that that isn't the end of the world. It feels like it, and we bury these as well, but it's important to to be able to give yourself love and heal yourself. But it's also important, if you need to cry and wail and shout, get angry, you need to do that too, because if you don't, that turns into tension in the body, that turns into stress turns into tension in the body, tension turns into illness, and illness eventually turns into death. So, the whole point is that actually, when, the earth, if pressure builds up, it creates a storm, it creates a hurricane, it creates a gust of wind. It doesn't repress it, it doesn't hold it back. The nature itself naturally does things to release the pressure. We're meant to be the same. We're meant to do the same. And but then you find that balance. Release it, but then find balance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly the process that I started doing when I was healing my childhood. I was going back to all of those developmental sort of stages and reclaiming, like connecting with infant Kristie, toddler Kristie, school age Kristie, adolescent Kristie, all of those sort of stages. And because there was developmental trauma at every single one of those stages. And so I went back and picked me up out of a crib and held me, and that was such an emotional process. Holy shit. There was, that stuff happens at such a young age. You're crying and no one's there, you don't feel that, you don't see maybe those visual memories, but you feel them. They're implicit memories. They live in your body remembers them, your psyche remembers them. So I have this just knowing that I was left to cry in my crib a lot. That's just a knowing. I know that because whenever I go back, when I did go back there and hold little Kristie, oh God, it was an emotional experience. It was the first time I was being held. And doing that for all the stages, toddler Kristie, I met her in a sandbox, and I went in there and I was like, hey, I'm here. I'm just letting you know, if you want to come hug me, I'm going to take care of you now. And it's reclaiming all of those stages, because if part of our psyche is stuck in one of those stages, it's impossible to kind of be adult present you, the centered person who can do all these things, because there's part of you that's lingering in the past. And, one of the biggest things that I want to just, roar every time I see this phrase is just forget the past, and all this stuff. I'm you can't really forget the past when it's ingrained in your body and in your psyche and all of these things. It lives within you. You can't just drop the past. You have to go back, look at it, heal from it, grieve it, remove the energy that's stuck from it, and then you can come into the present. It isn't as oh, it's in the past, just get over it. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that.
But again, that's because we sort of been led to believe that things are linear. We've been led to believe that things are separate. So the past doesn't affect the future. Actually, it does. It affects the present and the future. Far more than we've ever been told, and far more than can you change the past? The answer is actually yes. Far more than and I've been told this by alphabet agencies that yes, things can. I mean, you can change you can affect the past and affect the future. You can at least psychology in NLP, neuro linguistic programming.
Yeah.
And within the Taoist version of, because basically the Tao would say, yeah, NLP, yeah, that's Taoist. That's a Western version of Taoist technique. But yeah, you can, this whole thing with the Dragon Ball Shaman, you can go back into your own past and be there for yourself. And like you said, hold yourself and give yourself the love that, because you'll hear people say, oh, I never got this as a child and never got that. Well, go back and do it for yourself then. Yeah, but that doesn't change anything. Well, actually, no, it does. Because that is still, you're living it. The fact that you keep bringing it up, or if you bring up something that happened 30 years ago, it obviously is relevant. It's obviously important. Otherwise, you wouldn't even, but even to the point, the Taoist philosophy of that is sort of what you sort of said, like you go through every single year and you from the moment you were, actually even before you were born, you go back to conception. I actually have memories of being in the womb. But you go back to conception and then you go all the way through every single year. Here's some love, here's some things, whether you need it or not, here it is, here it is. Because a lot of people will always say, oh, Boggie, you've got so much energy, you've got so much love, you're so happy. And it's like, because I've gone back in my own life every single freaking year, and I'll do it several times, go back and blast myself with energy. Because, the person who can help you the most is you, and the person who should know, the person who should know you the most, the person who should love you the most, the person who should understand you the most, knowing is more a feeling and understanding is more, sort of the psychology side, but it always should be you. If you can't, if there's at any point you say, well, I don't know that about me, then that's not the right answer, because you should know yourself fully, and you should be you should be happy with yourself, in the essence of, I've got big ears, so what? I don't care. But if something's eating away, you need to resolve it. You need to find a way to resolve that, because that's imbalance, and that imbalance will always be an issue. That's the whole point. Until you find a way to balance it, it'll always be a balance, because it'll always be an issue of some degree. Because if you ignore it, it will come back, and so you always need to actually embrace it, and even just recognize that it is what it is. You're allowed to be imperfect. You're allowed to not. What, there is no good or bad, but just is, and everything exists because it's meant to exist. So all the past things that happen are meant to happen, but they're also, you're meant to embrace them and find ways to resolve them. That's the point. They're not meant to be, locked away in a closet and never talked about. They're meant to be embraced. You're meant to learn from them, because they're all experience and growth. But as any Gareth would say, hey, what do I know?
Yeah, becoming self-responsible can be quite challenging if there's an inner kid part of us that's still kind of waiting on mom and dad to be the parents that we didn't have. Like, at least that was so prevalent for me. Like, it's almost like I was stamping my foot down, being like, no, I should not have done this. It's an injustice, like unbelievable. Absolutely. Honor those feelings of injustice. Yeah, sure. Like, mom and dad weren't there. Like, that really is awful. And also, I chose this path. I chose this experience. I I would go back to the inner, those developmental stages I told you about. And I would let her know, little Kristie, I would say, hey, just so you know, like, we picked this like crazy, difficult, complex, traumatic like template so that we could learn and grow as a soul this time. So I love the quote, it's never too late to have a good childhood. That really resonated with me. I was like, is that possible? And it is, because you can go back and change the perspective of the experience. You could, as your vibration raises and you come at things from like a higher perspective, you can then look back and be like, okay, so I went through all of this because damn, am I a powerful soul, and I came here with so many like things to sort out, and I would not be exactly where I am talking to you right now with this like wisdom from me sharing with you if I hadn't gone through those things.
Yeah.
But there's no rush to really like, that's the part of my post yesterday was so many people are so quick to like, well, I need to be in the light and I need to be high vibes and all this stuff, but really like there's work to be done if there was trauma. The density needs to be released in order to float up.
Yeah. There's a to a lot of females, I'm the big cuddly teddy bear, and I'm not a kitten. But the funny thing is like when females think that, or you have a girlfriend and a boyfriend, and the girlfriend, oh, he's cute, and the boyfriend's going, he's scary motherfucker. He's he's a bloody maniac. And it's like, and the one thing is that I am what I went to the people who I'm the scary mother to, is that I was bullied to be that what I am now, is that I went through being bullied at school. I went through the whole thing of me embracing both my divine feminine and the masculine side, because I was always very loving and very feminine. But I had to also learn to embrace the masculine side, but not in a way which a lot of people, male and female, do, where because I was hurt, I have to be harsh, and I have to be not. I was beaten, or I was attacked as a child, and now I have to be the attacker. Mm-hmm. No, you if anything, is the other way around. Is that it's that case of there's a thing with Buddhist monks and Indian yogis that when I went to India and went to China, you see these monks, they're all about, they're about prayer and about unconditional love, and you see, well, but if you're all about peace, why are you learning martial arts? Why are you learning to fight? And they say, because there are still bandits in the world. There are still people that will take everything from you. And is that it's good to help others, but you have to still help yourself. So, there's no point leaving yourself, destitute, leaving yourself with nothing just to help somebody else. You have to be balanced. So those bandits will take everything from you just because they think they can. So you have to defend yourself. My energy is always that, I want to be peace and love. But you try to attack me, I'll rip your head off and use it as a boss. But I'd rather be nice, cuddly Kung Fu Panda Boggie. But mess with me, and I will obliterate you. And it's the whole thing of there's a whole saying of walking softly with a big stick. So which means you're being loving and gentle, but you will stand up for yourself. You will you will protect yourself and others. And it's that whole it's that whole thing where you're male or female. The whole idea is that you should want to love the world, and you should want to be there with the world, but don't let the world take the piss. Don't let the world tread on you. And it tends to be certain people that do that, and not the world itself. But the whole idea is that you have to learn balance. So yes, it's about being love and light, but also don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to show your emotions. Don't be afraid to be in that dark side a little bit. For those who know the Star Wars story, Disney's done is Disney actually corrupted the story, because in the original Star Wars story, they that Luke Skywalker found that there was actually this ancient knowledge called grey code, which is the balance of the dark and the light. And grey code balanced the two, because if you don't balance the two, the dark will always try to attack the light, and the light will always end up being attacked by the dark. And there'll always be this confrontation. But by embracing both light and dark, you learn to form balance. You learn to create that yin yang symbol. People call it yin yang. It's actually called Tai Chi, because it's both the masculine and feminine becoming one, the dark and the light becoming one, and it's all about balance. Yin yang is actually half a black circle and half a white circle, and it's opposing opposites rather than complementary opposites. Is like the day we start off in dawn, and gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and you have the light, but then it gets darker and darker and darker until it becomes nighttime again. But in the night you have stars, or you have a torch, or you have house lights. In the daytime you'll find shadows, you'll find dark rooms. There's always light and dark and light, and it's always about the balance. Any good Taoist to say, hey, what do I know?
Exactly. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Everything you say, it could have come out of my mouth. I love it so much. I love those kinds of conversations where they're just like, yeah, resonating.
I told you it will be one of that. You'll want another show, I told you. I did warn you.
Look at you, roping me in. I will be back for more. Yeah.
The door is always open.
Yeah, I'm actually in a process right now of just stepping more into masculine energy right now. That was something that I did not have very much of growing up. Big father wounds, big stepdad abuse, and just a lot of disempowerment, helplessness, all of that stuff. So I'm like currently in this like portal channel, eye of a needle, whatever you want to call it, of like standing up. And it is, I always was so codependent before and relied on the man to be the one to, I would just be the feminine. But oh my God, it's spicy. It's difficult. It's like one step up, two steps back, three steps up, but that's just me learning to come into power, learn discipline, focus, all these things that I used to outsource. And yeah, I'm just in that channel right now of like kind of, roar. A big like lion heartedness is just, my heart has just been bursting lately. And it's just this lion heart, this like exactly what you're saying. Like I am like very compassionate and soft and tender and sweet, but I will rip your head off and eat it. Like don't fuck with me. Sorry for my French. It's coming into that too. Like there was such a sort of distorted version of that energy out in the world, growing up, and for many centuries and all of time, really just this like war energy of like, masculine being this like dominating sort of whatever, patriarchy, toxic masculinity, whatever you want to call it. It's been this like, devastation sort of energy. So I think that people have been quite fearful of that because they're like, oh, I don't want to get powerful because then I'll end up like that. Definitely that was me. I was like, ooh, no power. No, thanks. I'd rather just stay small and meek in a corner and just listen to what other people have to say. And I think honestly, that's kind of what we're doing right now as humanity, is like reclaiming ourselves and our sovereignty and our power and that lion heart, and then balancing it with this tenderness. So yeah, that was like a very succinct thing you were talking about with the yin yang. It's just like exactly that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's realizing, and it is still again, perfection is an illusion. It's all about that way. When you start going down that path, you may go too much the other way, but it's about then pulling yourself
Yeah.
back. It's always checking in. It's always looking, and it's not taking anything for granted. It's learning that you're here to learn, you're here to grow, which also means you're here to make mistakes, and you're here, and again, there is no right or wrong, there just is. But
Mm-hmm.
it's learning that, it's learning how to flow with that. It's learning how to, create a balance in that. And that's why I always talk about the trinity of the feminine, the masculine, and the sacred child, because the sacred child, that playfulness, that willing to learn, that willing to see things as they are, but also see that all in splendor, that's what helps balance those other two. Because if you don't have that, that's why you get the opposing opposite. Because and that was one of the things that was pushed for a long, long time. Oh, from, and especially in the last 100 years, we're trying to turn kids into adults at the age of 10, 11.
Mm-hmm.
We're showing them all this stuff, and yet then when we're adults, play, but play this, play sport, and sport is, we're losing that compassion, we're losing that playfulness, that childlike energy. You'll always be a child. You'll always be the feminine side of you. There'll always be a masculine side of you, and there'll always be a childlike side of you. You're meant to have all three. They're not meant to. You can't eradicate one part of you because everything exists because it's meant to exist. So everything that happens, you embrace it, you find out how to learn from it, and therefore then it becomes part of you. So all your traumas you're meant to embrace. You're not meant to hide away from them. Not meant to ignore them, and you're not meant to try to obliterate them that they never happened or use them as a because this happened. I hate men because of this, or I hate women because of that. I hate bananas because of this. Is that you actually meant to embrace that. You're meant to embrace it and understand it and learn, and learn from it. Because otherwise you repeat stuff. There's too many people who were victimized themselves who then become abusers. That happens far too often. There's people who were child abuse that become abusers. There's people who were bullied or psychologically abused that become abusers themselves
Mm-hmm.
because they're ignoring a big chunk of information, and because they're ignoring it, they end up being what they hate. They end up being the thing that they, created them. They become themselves, and that's the loop that you have to watch. That loop, if you don't embrace it, you'll become it. It will take you over, and that's what happens. So it's about learning some stuff, not trying to ignore it, not trying to put it away and never talk about it ever again. It will come back, and that's the point. It's meant to come back because you're meant to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
then, anything could down should go. What do I know?
As soon as I think I know something, I know nothing. It always happens. I'm like, it's like a circle. You're like, oh, I know nothing again. Oh, no, I know nothing again. And rinse and repeat.
I have a saying for that, and apart from I know nothing, I say Barcelona. There was this guy I met many years ago. He was a waiter, and he knew he lived on this island. He knew the chief of police. He knew all the top people. If you wanted a jet, he knew somebody. If you wanted something that wasn't on the island, he knew somebody who'd get it. And you say, "Oh, Boris, you know everybody." And he said, "I know nothing. I come from Barcelona. I know nothing." And that's always stuck. So when people say, "Oh, Boggie, you know so much," I know nothing. I come from Barcelona. Barcelona, I know nothing. And it's that humility, and that's why I love that joke. So like, any good Taoist to say, what do I know? Because you've got to watch that ego, because if you start claiming things and go, oh yes, I've learned this or I've learned that, and I know this and I know that, and I know all about this now, life will come and slap you, and
Oh yeah.
and something will come, and you have to learn that humility. You have to be, be that everything's just a learning process, and everything's growing, and don't take yourself or anybody else too seriously, and don't take yourself or anything else for granted, and don't disrespect yourself or anybody else. They're really important things, because when you don't have your eyes open and your eyes are fully closed, you'll snap into something. That's the whole point. So you need to be aware of what's going on, but staying relaxed at the same time. It's like being open to things and just letting things be. Don't try to control them and just say everything. You can't control everything. Then the way of Zen is very powerful, but and then there were rivers there's a stream in Japan where the water goes upwards, and it's made from little motors that are pushing the water up, and it's beautiful, it's awesome. But if those motors break, the water will go back down again, because that's the way of the universe. So yes, you can control stuff, you can manipulate stuff into a certain way, but sooner or later, nature will take. You can't control it all the time, forever. So flowing with the universe and going with the flow and letting things be what they are, ultimately is the best way, because that is the nature. That is the nature of the universe, the nature of the Tao.
Yes.
But hey, Barcelona.
Yeah, it's finding that, like, it's exactly, it all comes back to this like center place. It's, if I'm doing too much and not relaxing, then I'm in this too much place. A nice middle ground is good. If I'm doing too little, I'm apathetic. I'm not doing anything, so I'm stuck here. And it's okay to do this. I was explaining this to a friend on a phone call last night, actually. We weave in and out. Like sometimes we'll be like, I'm so excited, but then we'll come back to center, or we'll be like, oh, I'm a little bit sad, but then we come back to center. But if we're always sad or always like, I'm so, then, there's something going on there. We got, coming back to that center place is like, in psychology, or at least in this childhood healing book I learned, it's called Superhuman and Subhuman, which was so helpful for me to learn, because I was always trying to be either superhuman by doing way too much and overachieving and trying to prove my worth. And I was also trying to be subhuman by just shrinking down and living in a corner and living small. So it's about finding that balance of like, yes, achieve, also relax, all these things, again, masculine, feminine.
well, there's a big thing in balance. Again, when we use the word balance, we tend to think of a set of scales, and set of scales are totally dead straight. But that's not actually balance. That's actually stagnation. Balance is meant. Oh, I turned the light off. I didn't do that. Balance. There we go. Now I've lost myself a lot. Balance.
You were demonstrating balance just now. You were black. You're doing the dark and the light.
but from the light, I've gone into the dark. So hopefully, I'm about to pull out the mic because I'm running out of power. So hopefully, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Right. It may have changed. Oh, and now the light's gone off. The whole idea of balance, as I'm pointing out in this demonstration, that I am totally in control of. The whole point of balance is a wave. It's meant to be a wave, and so with Taoism is like, yes, life is a wave, and you're meant to get ripples. So there are little ups and little downs, but and those ripples, you can have a boat. You get a boat and you can float across those ripples. But when they're massive waves, 1 minute you're right at the top, and then you're going straight down the bottom and going back up to the top again. That's exhausting, and that will use up a lot of energy. But when we create the ripples, that the things will glide across, and it's this understanding that the concept of balance is not a flat line. It's flat line is stagnation, but it's learning to go with these subtle ups and downs on a day-to-day, even maybe an hour-to-hour, even a minute-to-minute basis. But the whole idea is that when you learn to flow with that, things become a far more simpler.
Mm-hmm.
I'll quickly say this as well. Is that one of the best metaphors that I learned? My Sifu said, today's an important lesson. Okay, Sifu, and he says, I'm going to throw you into this river, and I want you to swim back to the shore. Okay, Sifu. I don't like the sound of this, but okay. So and it's a really strong current, threw us in, and I had a fight with the current, and it was really strong, and I really fought with it, and swam, back to the shore. They were walking as I was fighting with the current. They were walking with me, and I sort of scrambled onto the shore, and I was knackered, but I managed to do it. And as I'm sort of standing back up, and he says, now do it again, but this time relax. And he pushed me back into the water. I was like, what the fuck? But and this time I was already, I'd used up 3/4 of my energy, and it's like, I'll just relax. I'll just, become a log and just relax. And so I kept my head up and kept my head out of the water and just lay there, and it took a bit longer, but eventually the water treated me like a log, and eventually it pushed me back onto the edge of the side. And it says, today you learn a valuable lesson. You can fight with the universe and it will use up all your energy, or you can just relax and let the universe take you to the side. And it was, I was pretty knackered by the end of it, but the whole idea is that, it's a very important metaphor, is that you can fight with everything, or you can flow with it. And whether that current is up or down, if you just relax and go with it, you can, like in some situations that I learned in an emotional way from that, is that, if something was going wrong, it's like, okay, well, let's just go with it, and let's take it on the chin, and go through this, and get to the other side. And rather than trying to fight, this is injustice, this is not fair, and this is not right, just by going with it. I actually ended up wasting less energy, and at the end of the day, I could shape things and start with things in a certain way that it ends up to my advantage. And it's funny how sometimes people say, you're so easygoing, you're so, you don't, you're a bit of a pushover. And so, well, not a pushover, because what happens is I do things in a different way. And the irony is, at the same time, I get people who say, Boggie, can I give you some advice? And it's like, oh, here we go. And I say, yes, you can. You can give me advice. And they'll say something. And I go, okay, I'll think about it. Yeah, I'm going to do what I want. And they go, but, I gave you advice and you didn't do what I said. And I said, yes, because you gave me advice. If I do what you want, that's not advice, that's a command.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, my philosophy is, and always will be, at the end of the day, you can tell me, information, and I will look at that information, and I will go in my heart of heart, and it can sometimes sound a bit pessimistic, but I say in my heart of heart, if it goes wrong, am I going to blame you for it going wrong? And if the answer is yes, then I'm not willing to take responsibility for that for that idea. Because if I'm going to then turn around and say, well, you told me to do it, it's like then I'm not taking responsibility for it. I can't claim it as my own. I don't believe in it enough for me to take it as my own, because whatever you do in life, you should take responsibility for it. But good or bad, if it works, it doesn't work. I said I was, I did it. It's down on me. If you blame other people or somebody gives you advice and you're going to blame them at the end of the day if it goes wrong, then you shouldn't do it. You
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't do that thing because you can't own it. If you're not willing to own it, you shouldn't be doing it. And that's a very, obviously when you're a kid and you do that, it's going to cause certain issues, but the whole point is that as adults we should be that you can't take responsibility for things if you can't go jumping off a building at 50 foot and I've broken my ankle. That's my bad. I shouldn't have done that. If you can't take responsibility, you shouldn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
And whatever it is, however small or big, if you can't own things, you shouldn't do them. If you're blaming other people or blaming the injustice of the world for something that you decided you were going to do, you can't blame, even if it's, the world does it to you, it's like, but you can find a way around it, or you can find a way through it, or you can just go with the flow of it. You have to take responsibility for everything. If you don't, it will rule you and it will control you, and it will be a big thing of mine is bullying. I don't like bullying, but if you won't accept certain things, if you don't, if you do something and it doesn't work, and you don't accept that as your responsibility, that is a bully. It's bullying you because you won't accept it. And it will haunt you because you haven't accepted it. You have, everything in your life is ultimately down to you in some respect. Even the things you have no control of, ultimately you can either find a way to make it a good result, or you can say the injustice of it and the world is unfair or this is unfair. But ultimately, everything's down to you. Even the things you can't necessarily control, it's still down to you how you deal with them. There's an old saying what people think of you is not your problem. That's
Mm-hmm.
theirs. And if you're worried so much about what other people think, you're always going to be wasting your energy. You're always going to be, and you'll always be imprisoned to them because you're too worried. So, so if you do something and other people don't like it, that's not your problem. That's their problem. If you're happy that you've done it and you wanted to do it, that's all that matters. If you're not happy you did it, then you shouldn't have done it to begin with. You have to take responsibility for everything you do. But hey, what do I know?
When I started taking radical responsibility, it started last year. I started making amends to a bunch of people that I had wronged over the years. Mostly it was during my drinking stages and whatnot. I was what, Hall & Oates called a man eater. That's what I was. I was treated men horribly. I had, I would cheat on them. Almost all of my relationships were me actually one foot in, one foot out. And, having to take responsibility for that and own up to that. Oh my God. Whew, it was really, really difficult. I sent about 12 different messages out to people who I felt, people that hadn't blocked me. I felt I owed them an explanation and just an apology. And you know what? All of them, at least they were forgiving and were welcoming to hear from me. And that, even if they weren't, just the act of being really honest, it lights something up in you when you can actually start telling the truth. I was for 5 years I went through really extreme psychological torture from a step parent, and I was gaslit to the point of I did not my reality was completely denied. So I was very much dissociated for my whole life, and everything was the world's problem. All of it was just, what does this do? And I was so victimized by everything. And even when I was going on these cheating sprees, I wouldn't even be able to look at it or own it. I would say, no, you're cheating. It was a total projection because I could not accept that I would be capable of something like that. But when I really started, when I started taking responsibility, it's because I learned that responsibility isn't actually like a bad word. I think, I don't know, a lot of people maybe growing up, like the word responsibility is kind of heavy or dense, but it doesn't have to be. That's just sort of like a conditioned, way, a word, but once you start taking radical responsibility, it feels so good and you just want to keep doing it. Like, I just love telling the truth now. Even if it's like a slight white lie that slips out, I feel bad and I have to go and correct it, because like what you said, I'm very content with always being a work in progress. Like, I don't have this desire to arrive at like, yes, plant my flag, I am healed. Like, that's never going to be a thing. There's patterns I thought I had, cleared out, and then they show up again and you're like, oh, I'm so humbled by this because I thought I was over this, but that's not how it works. I like being a work in progress, and I will always love being a work in progress. There's so much to learn, always more layers to shed, always. And just responsibility is it's such an empowering word to me now, because when I take responsibility, my life becomes what I want it to be, because I'm in charge of all my reactions and how I view my perceptions. My trauma would shape my perceptions, so I deal with the trauma so my perception can be clear. There's just, everything comes back to self, yourself, myself, all the selves, all of us as this oneness. When we all take responsibility, I can't even imagine what that world would be like, if we were all just taking responsibility. Oof, just got chills. I would love to still be here on this earth, or at least in a different incarnation when that happens. It's just such a beautiful idea, self-responsibility.
Indeed. Right, well, I think we'll wrap it up. It's about an hour and a half now. So thank you so much. It's gone really fast and I've enjoyed it immensely. For those people out there, if they want to learn more about you or be guided from what you know, how can they find you?
You can add me on Facebook. For now, I am working on kind of like a website, Instagram scenario. That's eventually, though, in a few months. So Facebook for now is the best place to find me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant. So thank you very much. Enjoyed it immensely. It's been awesome. So guys, if you're interested in finding Kristie Sparksman, then look out for her on Facebook. And like I say, got a golden ticket. So if she wants to come back anytime, I'll happily come and do this all over again. I think it was a cool show and enjoyed it immensely. So if you're looking for me, you can find me on YouTube under Sifu Boggie, and you'll find all the Way of Kristie Sparksman shows there. You will also find the audios on Spotify under either The Way of Kristie Sparksman or Sifu Boggie or Bring Me to Life. And I am actually on the Bring Me to Life network and their website. You can also, Instagram? You can find me on Instagram under Sifu.Boggie. You can find me on Facebook under The Way of Kristie Boggie or The Way of Kristie Sparksman. And so, thank you so much. It's been a great show. Don't you go anywhere yet, but everybody else, I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, it's love, tea, and Jen to meet everybody from the wonderful Kristie. And remember, open your mind to the way, the conscious way, the way of conscious.